It is exactly 6:29 on this Monday morning. Welcome to the South African Morning. A study released by the UCT Liberty Institute says South Africans are taking longer to flee the nest and live independently. 71% of South Africans over the age of 50 still had dependent children. 30% of the middle class said that they still had children living with them at home. The study also found that South Africans were now living longer than before. So what could this be attributed to? Joining us to give us more information and insight on this is Economist Phelisa Nkomo. Mr. Phelisa Nkomo, thank you so much for your time this morning on the SA Morning. So parents are saying that children are staying home longer than expected. What is the norm and what has become the norm as far as the acceptable age that children ought to be leaving their homes to fend for themselves and start their own lives?
Thank you very much, Tammy. Truly appreciate the opportunity to really reflect on such an important topic in South Africa. I think the first issue is that the number of reasons why, younger people are not leaving their homes. Then the first one primarily is the state of the economy. So you might have heard that from the census 2022, that South Africa is actually unable to even draw the dividends that it's been able to invest on education, in that only 12% of children that are actually, or younger people that are able to actually go through post-matric qualification, meaning that to actually earn a tertiary qualification. So on its own, that's actually signaling a crisis, meaning that we don't have a very strong, educational foundation, which normally is actually used to facilitate exit out of home, but also exit out of intergenerational poverty. So that's the first issue. I think the second issue, obviously, the state of the economy has really not been doing well. In fact, South Africa has really been struggling to recover from the financial economic crisis since 2008, unlike other emerging countries. Other emerging countries like South Korea actually have really been able to come out of the crisis, but we've actually been struggling. But also instead, families and households have really been experiencing multiple what to call economic leakage policy interventions in a form of interest rates. Obviously, the third issue is actually around the issue of cultural or sociological issues. Now, obviously, cultural issues normally, people remain at home either because they are going to be the heir to the family household, or they are actually they're looking after, elderly within the family. And normally then the family will decide that they must remain and they will rely on remittances. But obviously the bigger issue as well, which is quite important, is the fact that this Kahoot of group, by the way, don't have access to social security support unless they live into they move to urban areas. Even when they move to urban areas, it's either they have to be connected with a relative that's located in them. And I think what the research really paints out into is really how it's actually juxtaposed the state of the economy, but also as well as putting the face into the state of the economy. So the call for a macroeconomic system that actually recognizes human rights is actually being even further entrenched or reinforced by the study. And the last point, which the point we're asking is, on average, at what age do people leave home? For instance, research shows that at age 25, people do leave home. But now people are staying longer. But also part of it is also because part of the jobs that younger people have been securing are actually quite seasonal, contractual, short-term, and creating a lot of financial insecurity. In fact, actually, during the 2008, we also even saw younger people and younger couples in terms of data moving back with families, right? And part of it was that because at that time the economy really shrank. We've seen that in the mid 2014, 2015, but I think the COVID has also made it worse, but also fundamental. Remember also the economic performance. You always look at it from applying what you call longitudinal perspective in terms of how has the South African economy performed in the last 10 years in a way that it actually improves the well-being of its citizens. And in this,
I'm wondering, Phelisa, when you say that the young ones are staying at home longer because of the economic state of the country, are they living at home but still being economically active, maybe not earning as much as they used to earn before? Or are they living at home and then being completely dependent upon their parents for sustenance and financial assistance?
That's a very important question, because you're really getting into how disaggregated is the data. Firstly, I mean, I think one of the things about the report actually says it very clearly is that there's a certain component which is sitting between 46% to 51% of completely discouraged work seekers, meaning that these young people no longer even buy newspaper to look for an advert, and that they no longer even rely on the word of mouth to hear about any forms of jobs, but also you have and meaning that they completely rely on their parents or on any of their relatives, right, or extended family members that they actually stay with. Now, there are actually two interesting things that are also coming from the report, is that younger women are actually living home because they also get married. But also, when they get married, the prospects of getting jobs and looking for jobs also is actually quite grim comparatively to men who are willing to pack their bags into the cities, but still are not guaranteed for any jobs. So in essence, you have actually a plethora of reasons why actually young people are actually staying home longer. In fact, one of the key things, of course, the research indicates, by the way, is that the author says there are certain things she's not able to see through the data, because part of it has to do with cultural and sociological issues. And obviously, as a Black African woman, I immediately understood exactly what she's talking about, in that there's a component of research that is embedded within labor markets or economic migration, that actually never delves deeper about the circumstances that leads into Black Africans either staying at home or migrating. But also the biggest issue, what this study really shines a spotlight into, is the fact that while we might have seen a lot of economic migration in the 1800s, etc., where mothers used to head households and fathers used to work for the mining sector or agricultural sector, we're seeing completely a different discourse this time around, where younger people are actually remaining because the economy is not creating new opportunities either outside of home or within their own immediate communities.
Very interesting dynamics there. Thank you so much for that insight.